It's the Farmer to Farmer podcast, episode 48, and this is your host, Chris Blanchard. Boggy Creek Farm got its start in 1991 selling produce at a farm stand in Austin, Texas, and to the original Whole Foods Market, which was also there in Austin. Now with two farms, one in Gause, a little over an hour outside of Austin, and one just 2.5 miles from the state capital in the heart of Austin, my guest, Ann Sayle, and her husband and farming partner, Larry Butler, sell their fresh produce and value-added products at the farm stand on their farm in Austin. I first heard about Boggy Creek Farm when I read about their smoke-dried tomatoes in a Growing for Market article years ago, and my mouth has been watering for them ever since. Ann shares the story of Boggy Creek Farm's start, how she and Larry managed the challenges and reaped the rewards of having two farms over an hour apart, pricing strategies, and the nitty-gritty of growing year-round in Texas. And we'll get right to it after a quick word from our sponsors. The Farmer to Farmer podcast is brought to you by Vermont Compost, founded by organic crop growing professionals committed to meeting the need for high-quality composts and compost-based living soil mixes for certified organic plant production. VermontCompost.com. The Farmer to Farmer podcast is brought to you by BCS America. BCS two-wheel tractors are versatile, maneuverable in tight spaces, lightweight for less compaction, and easy to maintain and repair on the farm. Gear-driven and built to last for decades of dependable service. BCSAmerica.com. Ann Sayle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Chris. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so tickled. This is our first real episode from down south. I know you and I were talking before the show, and you said that's why you're called Ann, because you're from down there. So you've got to have two names.
That's correct. Most people are born with two names, but we take the time to pronounce both of them down here.
So, how's the weather in Austin today?
Well, it's beautiful. It's full sun, a little bit of stray clouds, and it's about 45 degrees or so. And everything is just green as a gourd down here. The crops are doing great, and it's kind of like a second spring. We've had cold weather, but a little sleet and a little bit up in the low 30s. But I think y'all have gotten most of it up there in West Texas and Panhandle have been really deluge of snow. So we're pretty content right now, but you never know what will happen next.
Now, would that be a pretty normal winter season for you guys?
Well, we can get real cold. We've been to 9 degrees. We've had snowstorms, like an inch or so, and we get hail, we get tornadoes, we get everything in the world in the winter. Christmas Day, for instance, is 75 degrees, and that was kind of spooky. And the retailers lost a lot of money because nobody was in the mood. So I imagine sweater sales are down and all that, and people are appearing in shorts and slides and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, winter, nothing's really typical here in Texas. It's we're at the bottom of that big blue U that comes out of Canada and hits y'all, and then comes on down. And so we get punishing winds, punishing freezes, and all that stuff in the winter. It's just it's a violent place to farm. The weather is crazy, and it's you just never can expect anything to be normal. It's going to be like 75 degrees on Christmas Day or so, and then 30 degrees at night, and then 30 degrees every night. And now we're kind of inching back up a little bit. But it's just what it is, and we just kind of roll over and take it and try to get back on our feet. It's weather.
I thought it would be great if you could give us kind of the lay of the land with Boggy Creek Farm. And I mean, I've done a little bit of an intro before we started the show here, but I think it'd be great to get it in your words and to kind of round that out here.
Okay. Well, the first thing is that Boggy Creek Farm is singular in spelling, and a lot of people like to put an S on the end, and they only have one farm. But oddly, we're contrary, and we have two farms. One is a rural farm out in the boonies, about an hour and a half northeast of Austin, and that farm we started we bought it in 1981 and started farming it for commercial reasons because we couldn't make any money down here. Texas was in a real bad recession or depression back in the 80s, and so we couldn't figure out how we would be able to sell to grocery stores and get 15 cents for a squash. So we didn't do anything except learn how to grow our own food, and that was a pivotal learning deal. So that helped prepare us to be commercial farmers, and we went commercial on that land in 91, certified it organic and all of that. and started selling to Whole Foods, very first original store. And then also at the same time, we started just selling off a card table in front of a liquor store near our house in Austin. So we were living in Austin and farming that land 150 miles, an hour and a half, 80 miles, I should say, 80 miles away and an hour and a half drive. And then that lasted about 1 year, and we found this farm land in Austin. And it was 5 acres of rich bottomland soil that was located in East Austin, about 2.5 miles from the state capitol building. And we thought, oh my, it's got an old house on it. We love old houses. And so we thought, well, we'll just kind of leave the country farm as a place to get away, and we will turn this into a farm again. The land was farmed first in 1839, so it had farming in its bones already. It's just we had to kind of get the weeds down and get the junk cars off of it and all the trash that people had thrown over for years. And so anyway, we turned this farm into and called it Boggy Creek Farm because Boggy Creek was right across the road from the farm. And typically in Texas, you name your farm after the water source. But
right, because the water source is pretty darn important in Texas.
Water is everything. It's totally everything. So, of course, we don't get our water from Boggy Creek because in the 80s, during the downturn, they had what was called an earmark, now, and money was laid aside by our representative in Washington, D.C. to pave Boggy Creek so that it wouldn't flood. And so that to any water staying in East Austin, it all just shoots down further and joins the Colorado River. And so that was kind of disappointment, but that's the way it is. And we were lucky to be able to reactivate the shallow well that had been there for 100 years or so. And so we irrigate out of a shallow well on this 5 acres. And basically it is 5 acres, and the other farm is about 47 acres. But we have, up there we have carved out of that 47 acres, about 5 acres that we cover crop and we grow crops on. And the rest of it's woods. And like the woods, there's a lot of variety of trees up there and so forth. And Larry does woodworking when, if you have a horrible time like 2011 when we had the worst drought and heat wave in American history. This was before the heat wave hit in 2012 up north.
Right.
Which got a lot of press. But down here, it was just kind of a ho-hum, ditto event because we'd had the worst one ever. We had 6 inches of rain that year. So-called normal is 30 inches a year. We had 6 inches, and we had 90 days over 100 degrees. And one day it was 130 in our field. So, of course, everything died on the farm. But that's, that was that. Yeah, the farm in the country is really a peaceful place. It's it's rural. It's surrounded by woods. It's sandy land. It eats up all the fertilizers, and you got sand for about 2.5 to 4 feet, and then you run into red clay. So we've had everything from so much rain that there'd be like quicksand out there, and everything would die because it was suffocating. But other than those moments, every once in a while, it's really good growing land. And so we bring in quite a lot of stuff from that farm to supplement our farm stand, which is on the Austin farm. And it's kind of like an insurance policy to have 2 farms because if my beets don't make it, maybe Larry's beets will make it, and vice versa.
Right.
So that's the good thing about it. There's a lot of challenges in having 2 farms. It's like having 2 houses. At the lake house, you left your favorite spoon, and you need it now in your city house and stuff like that. So there's that kind of stuff like you got to have 2 of everything, and they'll both wind up in the same farm. So, but otherwise, it's good insurance. And
well, and you just said something really interesting. You said Larry's farm.
Yeah, we're kind of proprietary that way. Well, what the deal is that Larry grew up in that area. It's a little town called Gause, Gause. It's named for a colonel that landed there in the 1850s, and Larry and his family actually lived in the colonel's old house until the tornado collapsed it, and then they had to take the chimneys and build another house. So he grew up there, and his father and mother, they kind of thought they'd be farmers, and they grew 40 acres of tomatoes and took them up to the tomato shed that was along the freight train line in town, and sold them to those deals that do little four little green tomatoes in a cellophane wrapped piece of cardboard that you find in the grocery stores in the 50s. And
Right.
so that, but one year they bought their transplants out of the valley, the Rio Grande Valley, and they all turned out to be Romas, and there was no market for Romas. So they just left the plants and didn't harvest any tomatoes at all, and just bought some cows and turned them in and let them eat the tomatoes. And the next year they thought, well, we'll do some watermelons. And then when the watermelons came on, the watermelons from the valley had already hit the stores. And so there was not even any economical way that they could even harvest 40 acres of watermelons. So again, they bought more cows and turned them in. And then Larry's dad said, well, from now on, we are ranchers, not farmers. So that's kind of the way it was. But so we grew up with cows and coming through the woods on a January freezing night and with sleet in the air and everything, and trying to find a cow who didn't show up at dinner time, and he knew that she was pregnant. And so he would go out in the woods and find that cow and bring her and the calf home and stuff like that. And that, just different things like punching a hole in the cow's stomach with a knife, let air out or gas out or something. It just, when we started farming, he says, no cows, no more. So, so that's our Gause land is vegetables. So
well, and because your farm in Austin is very much an urban farm.
Oh, it's very urban. Back in 1839, this East Austin was the farming area. All around the city, the new city of Austin, they had zoned these areas. It's supposed to be for agriculture, feed the city, and so forth. And so our farm is right on the edge of these tracts of land, and the original pioneers from North Carolina, they bought 4 tracts totaling 50 acres, and this was the farmstead. But they were rich, so they bought more land. In fact, the pioneer husband, he came in 1832 and got Spanish land grants for about 400 acres to the northeast. So they had other land too, and they had city lots and all kinds of exciting things. So they were speculators as well as farmers. And they were farmers because they grew cotton and corn and wheat and had pigs and all that, and just did everything that they had done in North Carolina. It's alluvial soil from the flooding of the Colorado through the eons. And, of course, there's no flooding anymore because of dams. So we have to enrich our soil with minerals and compost and so forth. It's not 40 feet of topsoil. If we're lucky, it's about 2.5 feet soil, and then it starts getting into the clayish stuff. But it really is good stuff, and it's a little alkaline. And I wish it was more acid, but it's not, and it's okay. We deal with it. It's great for okra, great for a lot of things, actually. Good tomatoes. And so through the years, we've developed this farm to be a market garden, and the other farm has been developed as a roughshod, relaxed place that puts out a lot of crops. But it's relaxed in a way that you don't have visitors constantly and phone calls constantly and tours and all this. We're just overrun with all this stuff here because of our location. It turns out good in many ways because we do get a lot of school children coming through here. So many that I have to have an official tour guide because I'm a farmer. I'm not really
right.
a tour guide.
You actually have to have time to farm.
Yeah, exactly. So, and people are always wanting to get married here, and we don't really do that. We'll do a few fundraisers every year, but we're really not in the wedding business. And I think it'd just be horrific trying to deal with brides and brides' mothers and plan an event that's a year in the future because they have to book them early. We're 2 miles from the intersection of East 7th Street, I-35, the most dangerous interstate in the country. And so we're 2 miles from that, 2.5 miles from the governor's mansion, and all in the state capitol. So, yes, you could jog there in about 30 minutes at the most to the capitol if you wanted to, harangue somebody. But it's really got a lot of good things because, you can have a farm stand because you're in the city. And we don't really deliver to restaurants or anything because we're in a city and the traffic's bad. Traffic's horrible, and we can't afford, nor do we want to drive around in traffic all day long delivering stuff that's going to be wilting in a minute. And so it's good that people can come out to the farm and they can walk the farm and they can look at everything, and they can, they can just do their own self tours, and that's fabulous. It's certainly been had a big effect on people wanting to garden in this city. That's probably one of our greatest accomplishments that we really just accomplished by being here, not really doing anything except talking about gardening all the time with people, answering their questions and giving tours at times. We've done a lot of big tours for free just to let people know what we're doing and encourage them to do it, because we feel real strongly that city folks need to know how to grow something for many reasons, but, for security mainly, and to understand what farmers go through and see that to see how it is when the frost kills everything you put in because you didn't cover it or whatever. And, the good thing for us is that we got people praying for us all over this town during the big weather things, hoping, we'll be thinking about y'all, wondering how y'all are doing. Oh my God, 8 inches of rain, are y'all still there? Well, we're flooded, of course, but it's nice to have people thinking about you when you're out there suffering and so forth. And we think about them. We think about this one guy that likes 3 bunches of dandelion greens every Saturday morning, in season, of course. And so while we're fertilizing them or cultivating them, I'm thinking about old Ralph. He's going to be here and want them on Saturday, and they're looking really good. So he's going to be real happy. So it's really wonderful that because we're urban, we can have a farm stand that people who will get out in the traffic will come to. And we don't do a CSA. When we started our other farm, we thought about it because it was just getting kind of popular up in Vermont and places like that. And we understood that, people had to pay you up front because you didn't have any money to buy seeds. And because you've been doing nothing all winter because you're snowed in. So we thought, well, that poor things, my God, they don't have enough money to buy seeds. That's terrible. And so then we thought, well, we couldn't take people's money up front because a good hailstorm would come in and that'd be the end of it. And then we'd have, 100 people mad at us. So it just seemed so overwhelming. And we were only in our first year that we just thought, no way, we'd never do that. And we still feel that way, actually. We'd never do that. I shouldn't say never because, never does come sometimes. But we wouldn't do that now because of the farm stand. It just seems like it's better for people to come here and pick out what they want and how much they want. And if they don't want that, they're not going to gripe at you because you forced it on them. Although I do get a little bit in their face about, have you ever tried escarole and stuff like that? And
But you're a chicory pusher?
Oh my God, yes. I've always been a chicory pusher. When we started farming, the only green we grew first was basil and chard, and now we won't even eat chard hardly. And very seldom do we eat basil, but the chicories, kale, of course, we love kale and all those things, but the chicories, from everything I've studied about them, they are just a superfood. All of them, the radicchio, the escarole, the frisee endive, all the big curly endives, all that, and the dandelion greens, all of them being in the chicory family, not the dandelions in your yard, that's the Taxicum family, but they're all in the same family, and they're all, in my opinion, very delicious and a nice counter to all the sweet and bland and salty and things that you eat. And so it's just one of the flavors. It's one of the tastes. And I think that our body needs every flavor that's out there, every taste. And that way we're balanced. So we grow a lot of that, and I try to foist it on everybody I can. And we also do a lot of salad mixes, which I'm always trying to figure out if it's worth it or not, but people come for them. And so I guess if it gets them in there, maybe they'll buy the head of escarole, maybe, or they'll buy the sweet potatoes or whatever else we got. And so we do salads with the small leaves of chicory plants too, and it's beautiful with the full purple of the radicchio and the tender, soft, succulent yellow beans, the escarole, and the frilliness of the frisee and all that. And people love it. Chefs love it, and it gets them introduced to those things. Yet it doesn't seem so daunting as buying a whole giant head of escarole and then a big head of radicchio and another bunch of dandelion greens and so forth. So they've got that ready-to-eat convenience food, and they will tend to eat it that way.
Well, and I suppose getting people into the stand is pretty important because it's not just your produce that you're selling there. You guys also sell products from other farms, right?
Well, not vegetables necessarily. It is mostly, I'd say it's 95% of our produce. It's interesting that we've been in this business for 25 years now with this farm here in Austin, and the farm stand we started in 94 because the reason we started the farm stand, one reason, was because there weren't any farmers markets in Austin. Except one that basically was peddlers, and we wouldn't be able to stay in that. And so we thought, well, we can't, we can keep on doing the liquor store card table, but and the nice thing about that is the city didn't care or didn't know, and so we didn't have to pay any permit fees right now, and we'd have to go hire a lawyer and oh my gosh, have a bathroom built and everything to put up a card table in front of a liquor store to sell produce. And
Right.
but the farmers markets just hadn't happened yet. And so, and then the first one that did happen, put on by the Sustainable Food Center, which is a nonprofit here that encourages markets all over. They started one in 1994, and we went to it, and we sold, $60 on the grand opening day because they had a band. And then after that, it's $30. And we just think, my God, this is all the work we've got back at the farm, and we're sitting here, and this is ridiculous. We're 2 blocks from a major grocery store, and nobody wanted what we had. They wanted tomatoes and cilantro and chili peppers year-round, and if we didn't have that, they went to the grocery store because they do have it. So there was no way we could compete with the grocery store for the local people. And the people across the highway, across I-35, they didn't know existed. So we just came back to the farm and opened a farm stand and made $35 our first weekend, and that was $5 more than we made at the farmer's market. We could keep on farming. So we'd be on the field hoeing or something, and we'd see somebody drive up, and we'd just dust off real quick, run up to our little table under the fig tree, and which used to be a real estate sign. When we bought the place, we like to honor things like that. And we'd start selling our produce, which all fit on that table. So that's how we started here. And simultaneously, we're also selling Whole Foods, which is kind of strange. A table at the liquor store, and then a little farm stand in East Austin nobody knows about, and then we're selling the Whole Foods. And this was Whole Foods' tiny moment, too. They were a tiny store. And so we pretty well fit, actually. And we'd just carry stuff right into the store, and they'd have it on the shelf and talk about us and all that. And it was really good, very good relationship. And it was downtown, so it's not a drive. I could drive there in 5 minutes. It wasn't any deal. Now it would take 30 minutes, of course, because of traffic. But back then, everything was a lot simpler and all that. And then on this farm, simultaneously, we were having to restore the old house because it was caved in. The roof was caved in, and the chimneys were in the attic and all that stuff. And this was the original farmhouse of the farm that was started in 1839. This is right at the starting point of the city of Austin. So a lot of history here.
Well, and even I would think history with just, even recent history. talk about being in kind of at the beginning of things when you got started farming in 1991, 92, urban farms, organic farms. That just, it was a thing, but it wasn't a huge thing at that point. It certainly wasn't as trendy as it is now.
Well, you're right. And, people say, of course people say we're crazy and everything, but we didn't know better. It just seemed like it was good geographically to do this. And we like the idea of people being on the farm. We're very much people. We like people. And we've made so many good friends out of our customers over the years and so forth. So we don't mind people coming up on Sunday morning while we're sitting out in our underwear on the back porch reading the newspaper and peeking around the corner and saying, "Oh, do you mind if we look at the farm?" Yeah, go ahead. That has happened. Of course not. I wasn't in my underwear, but Larry kind of was. But that's happened. And people come up all the time. They want to see a farm. And, we understand it. And a lot of them are people who might want to farm, and that's good. But, yeah, it's been an interesting journey for the last 25 years because back then there were only about 3 other organic farmers or small vegetable growers that we knew of, and none of them lived in Austin or around Austin. They were all an hour away. And it was just, there weren't any farmers markets, and so they were all trying to sell to the grocery stores and things like that, which is tough. It's wholesale. Anyway, we kind of did start a lot of things here and pretty much everything that we have done was new at the time, just because nobody else was around to do it. We had to be the ones to do it. And from what we can figure out, we're probably one of the very first urban farms growing. And now I don't mean by nonprofit. I don't mean community gardens or anything like that, or people's backyards. I mean first farm in a city, in an urban setting with grocery stores around us on our farmer land. Schools and houses were ringed by 26 neighbors. It all used to be farmland. So we may have been the first, I don't know, but I know we're probably in the top number of earliest farms in a city. And we weren't trying to be trendy or anything. We were working with what we had. We had 5 acres of bottomland, and it was ripe for vegetables, and it was more convenient for us to have people come to us instead of go to them. And so that's why we became an urban farm. And the market, it's been interesting, the whole market, the whole awareness of buying local food and everything has grown from no interest at all back in 91, or hardly, to quite a bit of interest now. But we've seen the market is, always up and down. There's, nothing stays the same and nothing grows forever. But in our first years, we were just constantly, every year, a higher growth more. I mean, we get probably would, see, on this farm, we're growing on just 2 acres because there's giant trees and there's the houses and processing sheds and hen house and stuff like that. And so actually of our 5 acres, we farm 2 acres and then have some small orchards that we don't really count in acreages because it's kind of hard. And then at the other farm, a lot of it's cover cropped at times, and probably he's really actually doing about 3 acres there in bringing crops in. And so that's roughly about 5 acres that we're actually cropping. And here we grow year round. There's no big season. We're not closed for the season. We're not opening for the season. We are always open. We are always growing. And so we've grossed off of these farms up to almost $500,000 a year. Now that's not net. That's not net. That's gross. And so that's probably $100,000 an acre. Now, the interesting thing about the market, though, is we were always in the growth deal, always growing. Every year is better and better. And we hit 2008, 9, and 10, and those were our glory years as far as high grossing. And that's when Eat Local caught on. Edible Austin started in 2008. And they wrote about it extensively, and the newspaper. There was always articles because there's such an interesting thing, like a freak-looking monkey does virus, because everybody wanted to come see this strange thing that was happening over there. And so we did have a lot of newspaper articles and so forth through the years, and they were always great to get people to come. Because we got to have people coming to us, and bad weather day it slows things down and all of that. And then Christmas season at the mall buying stuff from China when they should be buying good food, but they already got the refrigerator stuff, so not a problem. And
it's hard to put radicchio under the tree. I mean, the color's right, but once you put it in a box and let it sit under there a couple of days, it's not going to be that good.
That would be a problem, right? But they could eat it. Give them strength to go to the mall. But it's just it's always, everybody always has a problem getting customers, even the farmers markets. And then of course in 8, 9, and 10, when it was just so great, there were farmers markets had already started here, like in the Whole Foods did a farmers market for us in the late 90s, and so that was good. And of course, we catching people that were going into the store. And so, and I was selling salad mix into Whole Foods at that time. And they said, well, how much is your salad mix out here? And I said, well, it's $8 a pound. And they said, well, how much is it in the store? And I said, well, it's $7.99. If I was you, I'd go and buy that. Penny saved is penny earned. And I just delivered it yesterday afternoon, so it's still pretty fresh. And so, stuff like that. And of course, right there at that market, I learned that you don't put $8 a pound on salad mix. You put 50 cents an ounce on salad mix. And that goes down a lot better because they think they got to buy a whole pound. $8 worth. And that was back, that's 15 years ago. That's a lot of money. So we still do that on salad mixes, although our baby lettuce mix, and y'all are going to die over these prices, I'm sure, but this is Texas. We think big. But our salad mix now are baby spinach leaves, no stem, a baby arugula, baby lettuce, and frilly mustards, these little tiny frilly things that are just darling purple ones and green ones. Those are in baskets, and those are all $1 an ounce because they don't weigh anything. And the labor is hard on them. So they're $1 an ounce. But I don't see $16 a pound. Although that's how we ring it up, the cash rate. I'm sure a lot of them are almost falling over dead when they saw that. But
and you're talking these 2 and 3 inch leaves, right?
Yeah,
like the bag salads in the grocery store. Yeah.
And spinach is leaf by leaf. Now arugula, first cut, you can just go along, saw blade a knife, serrated knife, and just get it. Same thing with baby lettuce mix, and same thing with frilly mustard. But then you start encountering, a weed or something or whatever, or you're doing a second cutting on something. So you got to be a little more careful and all that. And frankly, it takes a lot of time, and we wouldn't do it except that at times in the winter we'll have 8 different baskets of different salad mixes, and people love it, just love it. If we ran out of something, and we harvest during market, this is something that's really cool about having a farm stand with your farm. We're harvesting to get the stand set up, most of it the day before. But then the day of market, we're harvesting. Everything as it sells starts getting low. I have 2 ladies we call them the Marias, it's mother and daughter. They've been with us for 12, 13 years or so. And so they'll come in and scout around, and they'll go out and start harvesting more. And it's real fun because, maybe there was one dinosaur tail left in the tub. We keep everything in water. We don't throw things on the table to wilt, by the way. This is Texas. We get real dry atmosphere, too. So we have to have all our greens standing up, all our bunches standing up in water. And that keeps them looking good all through market. And, of course, we're in the shade. We have a building, so we have shade. And so this lady will be getting that last dinosaur tail, and I'll say, wait, don't get that one. That one's an hour old. Just a minute. Here comes Maria. She's got the new harvest. And so Maria comes in, sure enough, and there's all these new ones. And the lady just drops that one like scalded and gets one that's just harvested 10 minutes from the field, all washed and everything looking good. So that is a great advantage. We've been to farmers markets and seen our stuff wilted, even though we did take them in tubs of water because we wanted them to last as good as they could during, being on asphalt and whatever the temperature is and wind and everything. And so we really don't want to be at a farmer's market anymore, to tell you the truth. We've done it. It's wonderful and everything, but, we like just being at home, I guess, homebodies.
When you say we like being at home, are you and Larry both working at the farm stand then? Is that something?
Yeah. Well, Larry's kind of a wild card. He's kind of, everybody say, where's Larry? Because he'll be there, and then all of a sudden he's just vanished. Just like a ghost, apparition or something. So he's a little more outgoing than I am. I know you can tell I'm real shy in this interview. But I did grow up being very shy. And then I had to teach high school and junior high school, and so I had to get unshy pretty quickly. And that's come in handy to be a farmer at a farm stand because you've got to go up and ask people how they're doing today and can I help you find anything? And have you ever tried escargot? And he's here on market days. But here's the deal: we got 2 farms, so he can't be there all the time. He can't be here all the time. We're going to be married 40 years this year. And so maybe that's why we're going to be married 40 years this year, because he's on his farm and I'm on my farm. Now, we own both of them communally. This is Texas. It's a communal deal. So what's his is mine and vice versa. And I love his farm. It's so totally different from my farm. And he loves my farm because it's so totally different from his farm and so forth. So, but he goes up there on Monday morning, leaves at 7, picks up his helpers, drives an hour and a half. They farm. They harvest on Tuesday. He comes back Tuesday night, leaves them there. And then all the stuff that he brings, like the little Japanese hakurei turnips and the Roma tomatoes and things like that, he brings that in, and it goes on the table here. And then Wednesday afternoon, typically around 3 o'clock on market day, he goes back to the other farm. And so then he comes back Friday night for a Saturday market. And then he spends Sunday with me, his wife, his beloved. I hope he didn't forget me those days. But we talk on the phone every night. Big, what's going on there, what's going on here, all that. And then Sunday, he'll kind of reconnoiter here and let me know what I'm doing wrong and all that, give me some advice, and that's helpful. Or he tries not to. He'll say, well, and he'll just freeze up and stop. He won't tell me what he would do, but I want to know. Because sometimes, I'm making decisions here, and same thing with him. He's making decisions up there. Do we save this crop? Is it too late? Is it economically unsound? Do we need to mow it down right now and get it going for something else, and all that? And so we have to make these independent decisions independently, and that's kind of hard at times. But that doesn't happen that much. I mean, we've gotten so brave, I guess, that we make decisions and just go with it, and then the other one has to, okay, well, all right, well, I would have done it differently, but that's all right, but we don't say that, we just think it, keep it to ourselves. But that's a problem. But basically, it's this is our whole farming life has been this way. First we had the rural farm for 10 years before we went commercial on it, and so that's just the way it is. That's our life. And it's worked, I guess. It works.
Carol Ann, I'm going to stop here and take a moment to get a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. I'd like to get into talking about some of the cultivation methods that you're using on the farm.
All right.
The Farmer to Farmer podcast is made possible with the generous support of Vermont Compost Company, makers of Fort V and Fort Light potting mixes. When you buy potting mix from Vermont Compost Company, you're not just buying an input. You're joining a community of growers across the United States. And like the best inputs and the best communities, you're getting a product and a community that really have your back. Vermont Compost Company has been committed to helping farmers make money by growing great transplants for over 20 years. If you've got questions or need help with your transplants, whether you've got questions about watering, temperatures, or just troubleshooting other growing conundrums, you can call them up and you can talk to Carl Hammer, the founder and the owner of the company. And Carl knows his stuff. And about that community, Vermont Compost keeps track of who gets every batch of potting soil they create. And because Vermont Compost deals directly with growers without going through a distributor, they know who's using their potting soils and how they're using them. Vermont Compost Company knows, like I do, that organic growers are some of the best people on the planet. They're proud to be part of that community, taking care of growers by taking care of transplants since 1992. VermontCompost.com. The Farmer to Farmer podcast is brought to you by BCS America. A BCS two-wheel tractor is the only power equipment a market gardener will need, with PTO-driven attachments like the rototiller, flail mower, power harrow, rotary plow, snow thrower, log splitter, and more. You name it, and you can probably run it with the versatile BCS two-wheel tractor. The first time I used a rototiller way back in 1991, it was mounted to a BCS two-wheel tractor, and it spoiled me for life. When you get behind a BCS, you can tell that it's built to the same commercial standards as four-wheeled farm tractors. I've used other tillers and mowers and spent most of the time thinking about how much easier it would be with a BCS. On my own farm, we went through a number of so-called solutions before we finally got smart and bought a BCS. And even though we owned a four-wheel tractor to manage our 20 acres of vegetables, the BCS tackled important jobs that we couldn't do with the larger machine, from mowing steep slopes and around trees to working in our high tunnels. Check out bcsamerica.com to see the full lineup of tractors and attachments.
All right, and we're back with Carol Ann Sayle from Boggy Creek Farm in Austin, Texas. Carol Ann, you said you guys are grossing around $100,000 an acre both on your urban farm and on the farm that's located out in the country. Can you tell me a little bit about your cultivation methods to do that? I mean, because $100,000 an acre is nothing to sneeze at.
No, it's not, and it's pretty amazing to us, but it's very expensive to grow here, so, we're not rich at all. And those figures were basically in the glory years, 2008, 9, and 10. And then after 2010, 2011 came, and Larry made $750 that year, and so did I. and we paid all of our expenses, all of our people, but it was a devastating year. It was a horrible 4-day, 18-degree freeze that killed everything in February, and then had snow at the end to cover up the dead bodies out there. And then March was the hottest March on record with punishing winds that kept up until the end of June. And by then we were in the drought, the serious drought, the most serious in Texas history and in the United States recorded history. So that year was kind of like wham. But at the same time, all these farmers markets are starting up because it's eat local time now. And so there's farmers markets all over, and they're carving up the same customers that we had. We've lost our chefs' full attention, and we have a lot of chefs that come to the farm, but we've lost their full attention because they have to spread it around now to all the other markets. So that the $100,000 an acre is not happening anymore. It's probably down to 50 to 60 or 70. It depends. Every year is different, of course. But we've been climbing back every year from that 2011 massacre. So we do cultivate roughly at any one time 5 acres. And here in Austin, the beds are very close together. There's a footpath in between each bed. I've got an acre and a third field behind the house at in the back part of the farm, and we have to have a 25-foot buffer zone all around that, and there's 71 beds on that land, and they're roughly an average of 225 feet long. And this farm has just kind of grown organically. So nothing's, I hear all these farmers talking about, well, every single bed we have is 100 feet long, and that makes it easier for everything, easier for row cover and everything. And they're right, but we don't have that. And I think about it all the time. Do I want to lose? Because some of these beds are 250 and some of them are only 200. Do I want to lose 50 feet across just so that I can have a fun time with the row cover being all the same length? No, not yet. I don't.
Right.
But we're always trying to get more efficient, and that is an efficiency deal. But it would cost me money to give up that 50 feet that's on about 10 beds. That's a lot of stuff. I'm always fighting Bermuda grass, trying to keep it out of the field. And every time I do, I think, okay, that's 10 feet. That's another $100 of this crop right there that I saved, liberated, stuff like that. But it's very tight. We plant things closely together. People down here don't want gigantic broccoli heads. They want a head of broccoli that's probably about 5 or 6 inches maximum. And so we can plant our broccoli closer. We don't have long daylight hours in the summer like y'all do up there, but we can't grow broccoli in summer, so that doesn't matter. Broccoli grows in the winter here, fall and winter and early spring. Right. And another thing is we're growing all year round. So that's a big deal. A lot of people who are doing these magic numbers up there, they can't grow anything in the winter. So their market or their market time and everything, growing time is condensed, whereas we're growing all year long. There's something almost always on every bed here in Austin. You may ask about cover crops. Okay, this is part of our plan. Like Larry's got most of his farm up there right now is cover crop for the winter. And he's just got one section, it's probably an acre, that he's growing supplemental crops like beets and carrots to bring in here, turnips and stuff. And so not much of his is in production right now, but mine is just full production. Lettuces, spinach, fava beans, snow peas, everything in the world that is cold weather crop. It's all out there. Millions of kales, all kinds of kales and collard greens and all that. And in the summer, out of that 70, I'll have 20 rows of heirloom tomatoes and then cherry tomatoes of various kinds and lots of eggplant and lots of squash and all this stuff. So it's okay. Yeah, because we have 2 seasons here, basically, hot and cold. That's it. And there'll be a brief moment, maybe a week or two, where we have a beautiful fall. And in the spring, there'll be a nice week that's really nice. And sometimes we'll have an overlapping, like in the fall, maybe we'll still have some tomatoes. And then lettuce starts coming in. And people they're swooning. They're so excited. Now we can have the lettuce and tomato salad, which I think is a very watery salad. I would never put a tomato in a salad, never again. But that's a northern thing, iceberg lettuce with a store-bought tomato. And it's watery and horrible. So anyway, dilutes the whatever stuff you're going to put on it, the olive oil and everything. So, but that doesn't happen very often to have that mixture of tomatoes and lettuce, for instance. And broccoli, we plant our broccoli real closely because people don't want these giant heads. They want a head that they can eat in one meal. And but broccoli can only be grown in the fall and in the winter, and not in the spring and not in the summer. If it's still out there in the field, come along April, then we're going to get some 90-degree weather suddenly, and that stuff's going to start firing like crazy. Or the harlequin bugs can come in and tell us, you're growing broccoli too late. We're fixing to suck it all out. So that tells us to get rid of it. So now we try not to grow broccoli that late because we want it. Everybody wants the broccoli. It's fabulous, but it just is going to be a lost crop. So we try to get rid of the crops that nobody wants. In our scheme here, we plant everything real close together, and we try to keep the crops coming all the time, especially things like the Philly mustards and the baby arugula. We gotta plant those at least once a month. Both of those start all over again, and because you can cut on them several times until it gets too laborious, and then you better have a fresh crop coming. And so we're very intense. We grow pretty much everything outdoors. I have put up I'm in process, not I didn't lift a finger on it, but we're putting up a hoop house just for the winter, basically, to protect the romaine lettuce and butterheads from horrible winter disfiguring elements that they get. For instance, we'll get a bad freeze, and the central vein of the romaine all the cells will break, and it'll turn brown. So now you have a brown stem on a beautiful green romaine, and nobody wants it. So I want to put them in under the hoop house. And you say, well, you could use row cover out there. Yes, I could use row cover, but remember, this is Texas, and this weather is getting pushed down here on us by 40-mile-an-hour winds. And so the row cover braid the leaves of the lettuce and make it unsellable. So I've been losing my lettuce on these horrible winters. The last few winters have been really just freeze after freeze after freeze, and everything row covered all the time, getting beat up by the row cover. It will abrade the tail, and everything it touches, it'll abrade just because it's falling across it constantly with the wind. So right. The hoop house is a all used material situation. We've had a lot of bent those turn pipes, for other reasons, greenhouses and stuff at the other farms. So it's all coming here now, and it's being put up, which means it doesn't look as cool as some of those kits. We have to adjust things, but it's very cheap to put it up because it's all used material. We have it all. The only thing new is going to be the plastic. So lettuces will go in there for the middle of the winter, the horrible time, the January, like what we're fixing to be in right now. And also arugula, because while arugula is thought to like cold weather, it doesn't like freezes. It gets tough, and the stem gets pink, and it's just, not very agreeable. Actually, arugula down here likes summer better. I grow gorgeous arugula in the summer.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I grow it year-round. I've been growing it year-round for about 10 years. I had a shade house up here, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have a shade house on those pipes, and that will help me get some things in that, maybe late crops of this or crops of this, because it won't be so blasting hot under there. So I planted seed of arugula in this shade house, and it's gorgeous, beautiful 30-inch wide, just full. I'd done it's like a carpet of arugula. It's beautiful, tiny baby stuff. And then I noticed it started getting holes in it, and what it was not the flea, but the shade bug. And so this shade bug was just drilling little tiny holes all over it. So if I sold it by the pound, it didn't matter, I guess, because nobody's paying for the air in the holes.
Right.
It didn't look great. We're known around here for being the first people, of course, to grow arugula. We're the first people to grow celery. I mean, this is because we're so old. And so we're the first to do the salad mix, first to do this, first to do that. And so that was that. And I thought, okay, so it didn't like the shade because the shade bug got it. So by golly, we got to have arugula, and I'm just going to plant it outside in the field. And so that was about 10 years ago, and I have been planting it around for 10 years, and it does best in the heat, best in the summer. And, we can get 110 degrees here. We can, like, a horrible drought, and it doesn't matter. It loves it. The only thing is it's going to be spicy. It's going to be sparkly. It's going to be like horseradish, and people love it. So, of course, they like chili peppers down here too. But it's not that it's spicy like that. It's like horseradish, but it's really good and it smells good, and people are still in love with the arugula. And so that's been a big deal that, that people will come for our arugula. It's kind of a signature thing because they can get it year round. And they will also come here for spinach. And this East Austin bottomland is perfect for those two crops, plus tomatoes, and plus broccoli, and plus everything else. But it's perfect especially for spinach. In fact, in the I always want to say 1840s, but no, that's when the place was started. But in the 1930s and 40s, this was all truck farming over here before World War II. And people would grow spinach, and it was the spinach capital of Texas. The first spinach commercially grown that got loaded on a train, went to New York City, came from East Austin. And it's fabulous spinach. It's really robust. It's a rich flavor. It's slightly nutty, and it's really awesome. And, I go in and steal a leaf off of a spinach plant at a grocery store and just to try it out, and it'll just be nothing. Just nothing.
Yeah.
And it's certified organic from California. Maybe it tasted good there, but it is nothing. It's namby-pamby compared to our spinach. So our spinach is real. It's one of those crops, and it's tedious because we're doing that little salad mix, with no stems much and all that. It's tedious, but men buy it up. $16 a pound. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Say that. But the thing is, we lose a lot of stuff here, and your prices have to be. There's value. There's value in the price, and it pays for the times people didn't come to the farm stand, or when the crop fails, or 2011 happened, or whatever. Too much competition now, whatever. And so, if you don't have your prices, you're going to be out of business. You're going to be bankrupt down here if you don't get your prices. I mean, you got to.
How do you set your prices, Carol Ann?
Well, how I set my prices is a real. That's a funny thing. I mean, usually we hold our prices for a lot of years. It's like, if you're a landlord, you got a good renter, you're not going to raise the rent every year because you want to keep that good one. So we kind of try to keep the prices the same for 4 or 5 years. And, like people demand cheap food in this country, But the thing is, there's a lot of educated people in Austin. There's more bachelor degrees here in Austin than almost any city in the country, I think, or something, something like that, something amazing. I mean, I even have one. So not in farming, of course. But so people are educated, and they've read, and they're worried about their food, and they're worried about all the poisons and the environment and, all this stuff, Agent Orange on the crops and everything in the world. They're worried, just worried to death. And then they came from California. They just moved here. And now they're really freaked out because they can't find any food. So then they wind up here, and they come in dazed looking and say, oh, my God, because it's like our farm stand is like having 8 farmers market booths. There's lots of tables around, and it's just loaded with stuff, if we're lucky. And so they come in, and I said, where are you from? In California? And they'll say, yes, and everything was so cheap there, and it was so beautiful. I said, well, it's going to be beautiful here, and thank you for finding us and all that, but it's not going to be cheap. This is not California. This is not like any place. Probably the only place I think it'd be worse would be Arizona. So, just for harshness or something. Or Vermont. If you're trying to grow in the winter in Vermont, that would be very difficult. I would hate that. So, but every once in a while, though, we just think, we got to raise the price on this. This has been this price too long. We got to pump it up. We'll just raise it 50 cents or something, just not anything horrible. We don't double prices or anything, but just because we know we have competition, and there are new people getting into it that are giving stuff away because they're just timid about it. And they're, and they think food should be cheap, and then they're after it for about 5 or 6 years, and then they either get out of it or they learn that they've got to value what they've done. And so I'm looking at value. And people have told me for our entire history of having farm stand, they'll say, we don't care about your prices. We don't even look at the prices. We just want it. We want this food. This has made our life better. This has made us healthier, more energetic. And men, oddly, will tell me that they're thinking better. It's clearer thought processes, which I think is always good for when a man gets clearer thought processes. You know, I want them all to be eating this food. Maybe we won't have war anymore. So, you know, if they just eat the spinach in the winter and the arugula in the summer, they'd be doing good and we'd be all happy. But so we raised a few prices this last, but you know, like our $16 a pound tiny baby things, that's been $16 a pound for about 6 years. And, you know, I should make it $16.50, but the calculation is just, you know, we can't really, you know, we will, if we raise any price, we usually sell it at the lower price for a while because we just can't get our head around it and we forget. Generally, then we don't systematically raise our prices.
Okay.
Everything else has been raised on us. Everything that we buy in, the roll cover, the drip tape, all that stuff has gotten so expensive. The strawberry plants, when we get them in from California, more than half of it's freight. Freight's gone through the roof. So everything's gone up. And we just try to be more efficient. But then eventually you just pushed so much that you've got to raise some prices. Another thing that's an element to our farm stand is that Larry has a commercial kitchen at the other farm, and he's had it for 15 years or so. And it sprung out of the idea that in 1994, one of our first years farming here, we had 12 rows of tomatoes, over 200 feet long, and they were just regular tomatoes, early girls or something like that. And they were staked with wooden stakes and, you know, had string around them and all that. And we got a big giant storm come through one night, and there was howling winds and all that. This is in late May, early June, and horrible rain, and all these stakes, there were 12 rows of them, and they all snapped. And because the plants were big and heavy and wet and full of fruit, full of ripe tomatoes, and all those rows just flap on those. It was horrible. The next morning we came out and saw that, and we thought, we are ruined. This was 1994 when we just had opened our farm stand, anticipating tomatoes, wanting to sell tomatoes to Whole Foods, everything like that. And we were ruined because in Texas, if you don't have tomatoes in the summer, you ain't a farmer. That's just the way it is. And nobody's going to come to your farm stand, or they're not going to look at you at the farmer's market. Nobody's going to look at you because tomatoes are it. So we were very depressed. And so we kind of bumbled around for a couple of days. You know, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? No way to get them stirred back up. And that next morning, the sun came out all bright and cheerful and blistered every single tomato. Every ripe tomato had a big white spot on it. So we thought, well, we're done. We're just totally done. So Larry, who's very inventive and makes a lot of our implements and everything, we had a little woodsy area over here and where he stored junk and things that he could use for something. So he poured a little slab, and he said, I'm going to make a smokehouse, and let's try to smoke those tomatoes because it's too humid in Texas to have sun-dried tomatoes. So he said, I'm going to try to do smoke-dried tomatoes. I'm going to just do that. This is 94. So he built trays, wooden trays with slats in them, and we cut that white part off with the stem end, cut it off and had a half a tomato roughly, and put it skin side down on those trays and put it into these racks that he built. And then he had a funnel. Everything's used. Everything's just tacky as hell. Everything's used. He found this old funnel thing, big, about 2.5 feet tall, wide at one end, and then narrow. And he built a little fire right in front of it, and then it was all aimed at getting the smoke into this closed-up smokehouse.
Right.
The smokehouse is about 6 feet long and about 3 feet wide. I mean, it was tiny. And we smoke dried those tomatoes. It took about 5 days because every night it gets humid again. And so in the morning you have to kind of start it over. And you have to keep the fire going all day long and really all night long too, except it die out. And so then we took those tomatoes and they were awesome. They tasted like bacon. They were mahogany red. They were dried, but not too dry. And they were just totally unlike anything we'd ever tasted. And then we packed them in jars with olive oil, extra virgin olive oil on them. And the olive oil absorbed all that flavor. So people had really two products in one. They had the tomatoes they could take out and mince up and put on stuff, put on soups, put on anything you want to do, in with their omelets. It was like bacon, basically. Bacon. Who doesn't like bacon, even if they're a vegetarian? Oh, that makes a vegetarian rattle. I was a vegetarian for 18, 19 years. I never forgot what bacon tastes like. And so then once you use all those, then you can use the olive oil to make dressings or whatever. It's great for spinach. It's kind of like bacon on the spinach. It's a nice
That's right.
curry. And also you could use that olive oil and just keep a few tomatoes sitting around and it soften that up, the flavor up. And then as you use the oil, you put more oil in it, let it sit for a few days, and you should use that oil for a long time. And the tomatoes last for a long time also. Years. So anyway, we had them in little jars, and a man bought one of them and went off, and 20 minutes later he was back. He said, "I got to get another one of those." I said, "Really? You already ate them?" He said, "Yeah, I ate them on the way home. And if I got home, my wife would have killed me. I had to come by and get her a jar." So it was hugely profitable, and not I don't mean profitable. I mean, it was profitable because it's a value-added thing, unless you do anything remarkable to something. Nobody wanted Roma tomatoes, What do they want them for? Paste tomatoes? No, but you put a Roma tomato, because that's what we switched to after that. The early girl was too watery. We grew our own Romas, and they were meatier, and so we just cut them in half, and then they were perfect for it. It took about 3 days, unless it was extra humid. Of course, the rule is when you start smoke drying something, it starts pouring down rain here in Texas. So
of course,
after that first year, Larry moved the operation up to the farm, and he grew the Roma tomatoes there, and because the smoke that we were generating here, even with this tiny thing, it's like we were barbecuing every day, all day long for 3 or 4 weeks. So we thought we might get in trouble. So he moved it up there, and he built a smokehouse 12 feet long by 6 feet wide and so forth, and lots of trays. And now he has 2 of those. And then a food editor here was contacted by Food Network, and they said, "What's going on in Austin? Anything interesting?" She said, "Well, this farm in East Austin is doing these smoke-dried tomatoes, and they are awesome." So of course, then they contacted us, and they came down and spent 2 days with us. One day here on the urban farm, and then we went to Gause for the smoking operation. And that thing played on Food Network. There were 3 different places they were looking at in Austin, so it's one of 3 deals. But they played that thing over and over again, and we built up a mail order list that was just amazing. And one year we did 500 pounds of the smoke-dried tomatoes. Mostly we'd go for about 100, 150 pounds because you smell like smoke all the time. He'd come home and, "Well, how was the barbecue today?"
Right.
And you have to be watching them all the time. It's very, very, talk about tedium. You have to check them constantly and all that. It was huge. And now, from that we were making, $30,000 a year on those. And then every once in a while, though, every few years, we'd have a tragedy. Like we didn't have any smoke-dried tomatoes this year because we had all the spring floods, and it washed out tomatoes, ruined everything, ruined more than half of our potato crop, and all this huge rains in around May. And so that ruined the tomatoes, the Romas. So, and then one year he just got tired of doing it, so he didn't do it. And then everybody just berated him so much the next year that he had to start doing it again. And then after a while, when you had a couple of failures in a row, then I just didn't want the blowback from all these bad email addresses, and I was just tired of that. So we just quit it. Now we just sell them locally unless somebody goes to our website and they remember and they order them, or somebody sees it and orders it, or whatever. We do still do a little mail order, but it's not anything like we used to do. It was huge. And so that's one thing. He has this commercial kitchen, and so he does all kinds of things. And it's all with our vegetables, all with our fruits. So we don't really waste. We have no leftovers. We don't waste much. He does fermentation stuff. He's been doing that for a couple of years. Kimchi.
I saw you guys had cowboy kimchi.
Yes, well, that came from a customer who said, I've never seen a cowboy make Korean kimchi before. And Larry said, well, that's what we'll call it, cowboy kimchi, because he's a Texan. He grew up on a farm. He rode a horse to school in elementary school, and he's had a cowboy hat on his head all his life. So, except when he was in Vietnam, they didn't much go for it, so he had to wear one of those silly little caps. But so anyway. he does kimchi, does pickles of all kinds, fermented. Fermented green beans, fermented green Juliet tomatoes, which are really great. Your last crop of green tomatoes, just ferment them, and they're wonderful. And he does bean dip with smoke-dried tomatoes in them, which is wonderful. Bean dip's pretty ordinary, but not with smoke-dried tomatoes in it. He's done all kinds of sauces with smoke-dried tomatoes in them. And then he fire roasts tomatoes with a pear burner. You know what a pear burner is?
Right. It's one of those things we use up here for flame weed and carrots, right?
Well, yeah, you would up there. Yeah, you would in Vermont. You'd flame weed your carrot. Down here is for burning the spines off the cactus leaves so that the cows can eat them in a drought. It's called a pear burner because the fruit of the cactus is called a pear. I don't know why. It doesn't look anything like a pear, and it certainly is full of spines, but that's what a pear burner is. And so that's what he does to blacken tomatoes. He sets up a grill and takes regular tomatoes, heirlooms, and if they're disfigured in some way, heirlooms or whatever, and just burns them black all around, turns them over and burns them black, and then they let them cool, and then he rub all that stuff off and leave a few black specks, and then he processes them in a steam kettle, cooks them a little bit with salt, and then he packages them, heat sealed and all that. Commercial kitchen, and sells tomatoes that are incredible, and they have that smoky flavor in them, and they make great sauces, soups, and whatever you dollop up to of that into a saute, changes it, and all that. And so he does all kinds of things in this commercial kitchen, jams from our strawberries, from our figs, and things like that, and Bloody Mary mixes everything in the world, just as he wants to do them. It's not something we're selling into a grocery store and you have to keep it stocked. It's just, if he's in the mood to make it, and we have strawberries and figs now, he's going to make strawberry fig jam. And so there's a value-added thing coming into the market that even in our low times, we have that stuff. He does seasonal soups, which are real popular because it's a convenience food. You can extend them with more water or broth. You can put more greens in them, or you can do whatever you want to, but you have your basic soup right there. And it's all the stuff that we grow in that soup deal, and it changes all through the year. So all that stuff, and we can do all that because we don't have to transport it anywhere. It just comes here and gets in the farm stand, and then sits on the shelves in the farm stand. So it's easier for us to do it because we have a farm stand. So all the stuff, the chickens get some tomatoes to eat at the end, but really it's not the ones that have any value. I used to freeze tomatoes also for value added because then people could put them in soups and sauces all winter long. And the neat thing about that was they would let them thaw out and the skin would just pull right off with 2 fingers. And then they had this luscious Oaxaca Jewel heirloom tomato, yellow. Oh, my God, beautiful. And so that was real popular. But now we just put it all in a fire roasting. And so we'll have fire roasted Oaxaca Jewel tomato, heirloom tomato, or we'll have celebrity tomato or whatever, or Romas. There's Romas, too, for a real thick sauce. And so all that coming out of that kitchen is very important to us. That's part of the deal. We grew the stuff, so it's still coming out of the acres that we're growing on. And so that's part of the deal. So in other words, we are very diversified. We work all the time, pretty much. In fact, this year, we're so excited because we actually had 3 days off around Christmas and 3 days off for this coming weekend, this New Year's, and we're just ecstatic about it. And of course, we're going to go up to the other farm because I don't get to go up there very much. So it's a farmer's holiday. Just go to another farm. But and we have taken 5-day vacation in 25 years, probably about 3 times. But basically, when you're we don't go to parties or anything because we have a party 4 days a week at our farm stand, and because now we are open. And this is a big change for us. We're open Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because it was killing us weather-wise to only be open 2 days and one of those be a terrible weather day. So and people were saying, well, I can't come on Wednesday anymore. Is there any other day you can be open? And finally, we just said, okay. We try to listen to our customers. They wanted to come at 8, and enough of them wanted to, and they started slipping in guiltily before 9. And so we said, okay, we're going to be open at 8. 8 to 1, that's it. And some people get their 5 till and want to try to get our eggs. And I said, nope, you can't have any eggs until 8 now. Now, this is it. Because our chickens' eggs are in hot demand. partly because they can only have 6, and they're by the pound. They're $5 a pound, which turns out to be about
really?
Yeah, it turns out to be about $4 a 6-pack, but that's all they can have. Now they can go over and get the Boggy Creek eggs, which are 90% as good as ours. They don't get kale delivered, hand delivered by me in the winter, so they can't be as good as ours. But they can go over there and get the dozen for $6. But ours would be $8 a pound, $8 a dozen, but we won't let them have that much because we have to spread it out because there's so much demand. So remember, the chickens live their entire life on the farm, so they are just they're just eating. But
right.
Not just eating, they are pooping. And to me, this is the reason to have chickens on a small farm like this. They are making, because they eat the awesome feed and eat all our produce, they are making the most awesome poop there ever was. And so this is what I clean out mixed with straw from underneath the perches and make compost with. And the nice thing about living in the town is that there's people who don't want leaves in their yard. So at first when we started doing compost back in 92, 93, and here at Austin, we'd go around with a 16-foot trailer and fill it full of bags of leaves and go back and get another bar in the trash bin and say, okay, great. Y'all go that way, we'll go this way. And that saved the trash people time and all that, and we got all these leaves, and we made compost with it. Well, then they quit having the plastic bags, and so now we rely on the yardmen who suck it all up with their whatever they do, how they get it all raked up, and bring it here and dump it out here with a few trashes. Of course, we pick up a lot of trashes and sticks, even though we want just leaves. We have branches to have to haul out and all that, but you don't get anything for free, right? So we take those leaves they bring us, and primarily early fall, and right now it's all pecan leaves, and then in about February we'll start getting oak tree leaves, which we really like because they're more acid, except they're so slick that the water will go right off them, so they're a little more difficult to compost. But we take that and our chicken's manure with a little spelt feed thrown in, which is cute. We don't lose any feed even though they kick it out of the pans, because that binds up in the compost, and it's another nitrogen source. So, and everything else that's good about it. So we make our own. I'm the compost maker, obviously. I drive Gause or Lillian. Those are the 2 tractors. Lillian is a smaller tractor. They're both Kubotas, and Gause, I know the men are all interested in this tractor stuff. Larry has 4 tractors, by the way. 4. He has a big John Deere, and then he has everything down to a little kinky tiny Massey Ferguson, which is good for getting in between his beds. But I have 2. I have Lillian, and then her boyfriend, Gause. And we call him Gause because he used to have these giant teeth that came over. He was used. We bought him used. And somebody had used those for doing something awful, mutilation of somebody. And they would fold over the bucket and hold whatever's in the bucket. And they were really useful, except that we'd be putting compost out of the bucket, and the teeth would be raised. And if we had a hat on, we'd knock our head into one of the teeth. Oh. And so, I was afraid all my helpers were going to get drilled, and, it'd be a problem. So we finally, he sprang some hydraulic leaks, and so finally we had to trade in his teeth to get the hydraulics replaced. And so now we should still have them because they were really useful. But anyway, I make the compost, and I have an assistant, Andrea, who stands there with the water hose and waters it down while I'm fluffing it up, mixing it with all this stuff. And that's what we put out. You talked about cultivation and how we grow things. All our beds are raised beds, and they're all permanent beds and have been for 2 decades. We started out with a 4-foot wide tiller. That was the only implement we had. And it's only reason we had it was a Kuhn, Kuhn, a really nice tiller, $1,200 back in 93 or 4 or something like that. And the only reason we had it is because Larry's grandmother gave it to us, bought it for us, because we got into farming with no money because we didn't have any money. And this is a digression, but we bought this farm on Larry's real estate commission because he'd been a broker. And the people had to find, it was a knee breaker outfit that owned it. It'd been through the Depression in Texas. The people had lost it. They didn't like it anyway. They lost it. And so we got it from the knee breaker people, and they had to finance it because banks won't finance on a lot of land and a broken down house. So they had to owner finance it, and we used his commission as down payment because we had no cash. We had been through the Depression too. and didn't make any money. So then there was 2 acres cut off of it that had been mortgaged for $95,000, and they went bankrupt. So that loan was bad, and so we got that for $5,000. And I wanted the realtor people, the company, to finance it, but they said absolutely not. They would not do it. It had to be $5,000 cash. And I said, okay, we'll get our credit card and we'll bring you the cash. So we put it on our credit card, which didn't have anything on it. Since we didn't have any money, we weren't charging stuff either, because you don't do that, right? So we were already farming to other farmers. So we were already farmers. You don't run a credit card if you can't pay it. So you pay as you go. So we got it. We got that 2 acres for $5,000, and we got this 3 acres with the old house for $35,000. So we got $40,000 in this. We had a house that we lived in across the tracks, and so after we were sure that we were going to stick with this farm, we sold that and we paid this off. So we got out of debt. We were in our mid-40s when we started farming, so we got out of debt. We owed a little bit on the other farm, but it was easy, and we paid it off. So all the farms were debt-free before we became 50 years old. And so that has been so liberating to not have any debt. If we get a truck, and Larry has to get one every 3 years because he's driving all the time. If we get a truck, then we do finance it with as big a down payment as we can save up, put on it, and then we start throwing money at it at any time, just paying it off, get rid of it as fast as possible. And then we do run up a credit card, various things. Larry's always doing something. He's always building something, always new things, whatever. So we pay that off monthly. And so we have no debt at all. And that makes it easier to not make any money.
Well, I was gonna ask how you guys survived in 2011 and 2012, those awful years, and even this year with the bad rains. But certainly that low debt load, that low requirement to perform,
yes,
must make a difference.
No mortgage, and our daughter moved back in with us, back in 92, and she helped us start the farm. But then she got married and she went off. So all the kids were out of the house pretty much. So we didn't have to worry about it, and they were all educated because we started later. All these 23-year-olds want to have babies, and I don't know how to do it because it's, it takes a lot to raise a kid and put them through college and all that. We did all that, and, just pretty much with help from the spouses or whatever, but we helped.
Right.
We got that done, and so basically it was just to stay, just to keep from being hauled away in bankruptcy or something. But 2011 was possible to pay everybody because 2008, 9, and 10, when we made money, we saved it. That was the deal. And then 2011 came along. We paid everybody, and we actually built a house, one that I'm sitting in right now. It's a Texas dog trot. It's on a lot that we bought from the widow of my brother, and they were going to build here, but then he died. And so we bought this lot, and it's adjacent to the farm. I'm looking right out on the farm. And we didn't know what we were going to do with it, and Larry said, why don't we build another old house? So we built this 1845 style dog trot with a little apartment on each side and a big breezeway going through the middle and a big giant back porch, and we shoved it toward the farm, so there's no doubt it belongs to the farm, except it's on its own property. And so we paid for that in cash, and it cost $200,000 to build it. Wow. Really, it cost more than that, but Larry poured all the cemeteers himself and stuff like that, and we all helped. It's like the Amish. When it's time for our carpenters that we hired to put up a framing wall, we all came out of the field and held it up while it got situated and stuff like that. It's just, but we've decided that we didn't want to squander any money we made. We didn't want to have it all in stocks or whatever or anything like that. Remember, we started this farm, we had no cash, no money, and not making any money because it was hard in Austin during the Texas downturn, very hard. And Larry actually did remodeling for the first 6 months that we were on this farm, and then it started paying for itself. And since we had not much debt because we were renting out our house that covered the mortgage here, and so it was not too much of a strain. And in fact, one day Larry said, I said, Larry, I figured out how much we're making. This is in 1993. How much we're making? And he said, well, how much? I said, well, we're making $3.23 an hour. And at that time, I think the going bottom wage was $5.15 or something. And he said, "Oh my God, his shoulders just slumped. We're working our tail off. $3.23 an hour." And he said, "How are we making it?" And I said, "Well, we're working 70 hours a week. That adds up. 70 times 3.25, whatever it is. That's enough." And everything we made, we put into the place. We had to have infrastructure. We had nothing. We had no barns. We had no processing shed. I was washing salad mix out in the yard in an old antique deal where you did laundry in and stuff like that. And it was just primitive, very primitive. But we didn't want to finance anything because we were so worried about losing everything if we financed. So we just did what we did, and we ate off the farm. We ate eggplant that first year. I tell you what, it ruined Larry's eggplant for 10 or 12 years. I happened to like it, of course, and it grew really well in this hot Texas sun. So that's what we ate, eggplant and chard. We ate a lot of chard during the winter and thought it was just the most amazing thing in the world. And now we just, whatever, chard. But let's see. But anyway, so we put that money into the house here because we wanted to be diversified again. We didn't want to have to sell our farm to survive. If we had to sell something, we would sell this. Or we always figured out, well, if we had to do it, we'd sell the country farm first, whatever, but we don't want to sell anything, but you never know what will happen. But at least we could rent this place to people who would pay the rent, and that would help us if we lost our tax advantage on the farm here and had to pay $20,000 a year, well, we'd have to rent this out, but that would cover it. Renting this out would cover that. So it's just kind of balancing out so that you don't lose everything, that you get through the tough times, because it always changes. People stop farming just because they've had a bad year. But they need to step back, yes, and think about what they could have done differently and what they will do next year, and they must do next year because that's going to be the fabulous year. So that's the deal. It always changes. It's like the Texas weather. It's going to change. So you just adapt. You go with it. You put the row cover on. You take the row cover off, endlessly. All that kind of stuff. But so we have made money on the farm. And but this right now, it's tougher because we're coming back from that 2011 catastrophe year.
So when you're looking ahead now, Carol Ann, you mentioned you guys started farming at 40. You do the math on that. You guys aren't exactly young anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to say. I want to say that right. You're not a spring chicken.
Old. You can say you're old because it's true. Actually, he was 44 and I was 47. But we're strong people. We're I hate to say this, but we're multi-generation Texans. Our grandparents farmed. Before them they were pioneers. We're of hardy stock. And so we were in good condition, and I'm 71 and a half, and Larry's about 3 years younger than I am. He just turned 68, I think. Yeah, 68. And so we can still walk and get around. I'm kind of pulling back a little bit from some of the arduous things, but yet I find that somebody's sick. I've got to get out there and do it. So I might as well. I work out on the farm in the morning, every morning, because I never know when I'll have to be pulled in to harvest 65 heads of kale for the restaurant.
Right.
So stuff like that. So I have to stay fit, and I want to stay fit. And Larry built me a standing desk. He builds a lot of stuff out of the wood from the other farm, beautiful furniture. And so, we try not to be sitting down all the time and all that. And we eat right. We're gluten-free, but Larry's pre-celiac, so we have to be gluten-free. And we eat what we grow, and we're very moderate drinkers, and we don't smoke, never have. And so, we're in good condition. For people who seem, astonished, tell us how old I am, because it's hard to figure out how old people are anymore. If you're over 30, I don't know how old you are. The thing is, there is a future to contemplate. We've thought about this off and on for years, because, you never know. If one of us dies, then that's going to change the whole ball game. But because of finances, the farms will have to stay in business because who can pay $20,000 a year on taxes if you're not making any money, just Social Security, and stuff like that. So we're of course looking at young people, and we hire young people to be farm associates, and we have two young women right now. They're really wonderful, and I'm sure someday they'll want to go to a farm, and we'll be sad, but we'll tell them they have to replace themselves first, so they're not allowed to leave, And then we have 3 Mexican ladies here that are Mexican nationals, and Andrea, who helps me water the compost, and who's kind of an all-purpose person. She's like me. We clean out a bed, we plant, we do everything, we harvest everything. And Marias are primarily harvesters with little light cultivation, and they harvest all the greens typically, and all the salad mixes and that kind of thing. And so we have those are on this farm, and then Larry has a couple of guys up at the other farm, and then he has a couple of neighbors that can pitch in for really big stuff. And then his son is now there with him. So that's a young person relatively, and he's in his 40s, as Johnny does. And he'll probably inherit that farm up there, and probably my 2 kids will inherit this one here. And my kids are not interested at all in farming, though, but they're interested in protecting the farm, and that's the important thing. Protecting the farm, protecting the farmhouse and the history and all of that. Hopefully there'll be some way that, we might put a conservation easement on this land and stuff, keep it from being turned into condos and whatever. It's something like that. But we don't know. I mean, I'm sure something will force us to know pretty quickly, but we're just kind of exploring different routes to go. And our dream would be if these 2 young ladies right now, they've been here over a year, which is kind of long for Anglos. Mexican folks, they stay forever. The Anglos, they've got options, so they move on after they've milked what they could out of one farm, learning how to do that. Then they want to go to another one, and I totally understand, and I totally wish them well, and think it's a good idea, because they're not. But I want some that see everything is in place here. It's all here, and for them to go out first, find water somewhere out east. Don't go to the hill country. There's no water. It's all rock. Everybody wants to go to the hill country. You can't raise a goat there. Go east. That's the old farmland. But where's the water? And with these big cities sucking it all out, it's going to be tough. And then you can make soil, but you can't make water. So that's the deal. So, but if they just came here and just took over here, in a few years with us just as mentors and, correction officers or something, and doing all the inside work, then they could be farmers who don't have to do the business side. They would be something, I mean, it could be anything. I don't know what it'll be. We'll find out when we're really old.
All right. So, Carol Ann, let's turn to our lightning round here and get a few quick questions here in at the end. So, what's your favorite tool on the farm?
Well, I have 2 favorite tools. I knew you were going to ask this. One of them is the half-moon hose, or the swan neck hoe. I like that because it kind of slips under the drip tape real easily, and it's got a sharp point on either end. So if there's some weed I don't really like at all, I can turn it on its edge. So I like the swan neck, or also called a half-moon hoe, and I like a flat shovel. And the flat shovel is great for scraping up under the hen house roofs where they're dropping all their good stuff all night long. It's good for getting all that shoveled up and into the tractor, into the bucket, and stuff like that. So, and it's good for edging things. And it's just I like those flat shovels. It's strong. So those are the 2.
All right. And what's your favorite crop to grow?
Besides escarole.
Well, maybe it's just escarole. That's an okay answer. That's good stuff.
It's more like season. Of course, I love doing the heirloom tomatoes because everybody loves them so much. But basically, I like the cool season the best. I like all the vegetables. There's a lot of variety in the vegetables in the cool season. In the summertime, it's cucumber, squash, green beans, and tomatoes. Basically, okra. I can't forget okra. That is not my favorite crop, but I've picked a lot of it, and it's very itchy. I also like figs. I love growing fig trees. They're very itchy, too, just so you know. They're almost as itchy as okra. But I guess it would have to be just the cool weather crops. I just love the greens and all that, and the chicories and the beets and the carrots and the snow peas and the fava beans and, sugar snap peas and, wow. Parsnips were not too favorable, not too good for us anymore, but we grow great parsnips. But they, if you harvest them with wet leaves, they put big stain blister on your arm if you have bare arm. And I know nobody'd be bare-armed harsh in the winter up north, but we are here. And so we don't do parsnips anymore because of that. But, so just a cool, I like the olive variety. Leeks, I love leeks. We're planting leeks right now, and we're a little late on them, but we're having to do them in, get them in, bit by bit.
And if you could go back in time and tell your beginning farmer selves one thing, what would it be?
Oh, wow. I would say, well, we weren't out of debt yet, but that's what I would tell any farmer: get out of debt first. that makes it better. And I would certainly tell us to do it. It's been a miraculous adventure. Really, truly, you're never bored. I would tell myself, yes, do it again. It's great.
Carol Ann, thank you so much for taking time this morning to talk to us here at the Farmer to Farmer podcast.
My pleasure.
All right, so wrapping things up here, I'll say again that this is episode 48 of the Farmer to Farmer podcast, and that you can find the notes for this show at farmertofarmerpodcast.com by looking on the episodes page or just searching for Sayle. That's Sayle. I'm super excited to be heading to Kansas City on January 25th and 26th for a 2-day short course on making your market farm work for you. I'm really big on this idea of management, the organization and coordination of resources and activities to achieve a defined outcome. But how do you do it? You plan, you monitor, and you control, and if necessary, you make a new plan. And I want you to plan to get to this workshop where we're going to cover a cornucopia of ways that you can improve the outcomes from all over your farm, from maintaining your values in the face of business pressure to responding effectively to unexpected changes in weather, staffing, and the marketplace. We'll dig into finances and employees, as well as the cool stuff like weed control, refrigeration, and irrigation. Like how I did that, refrigeration, cool stuff. We'll probably even talk a little bit about love and beets. More details and registration at cultivatekc.org. Also, we wrapped up the employment workshops that I've been talking about last fall, but I've got another one on schedule in Grays Lake, Illinois on February 17th, 2016. I guess I can stop saying 2016 now because that's where we're at. Employees make it possible to get more done, but managing workers and their work takes dedicated time, energy, and processes. And I'm going to share what I've learned in 25 years of farming and working with farmers about how to make that work for you. More information, including schedules and registration information, at purplepitchfork.com/betterboss. If you enjoy the podcast, I'd encourage you to check out my weekly email newsletter, The Flying Rutabaga. The Flying Rutabaga runs the gamut from practical templates for delegation to guidelines for watering transplants. You can sign up at farmertofarmerpodcast.com or purplepitchfork.com. Also, if you enjoy the show, it would be great if you would pop over to iTunes and leave us a review, make a comment on the show notes, or tell your friends on Facebook. These reviews and referrals are the bread and butter of making this show available to an ever wider group of listeners. And you know what else? I'd love to hear your suggestions for guests on the show. This show today came out of a suggestion that I got from a listener. So we really do follow through on those. In fact, I'd say probably about half of what I've done so far actually comes from people writing in and saying, you know what, I want to hear from. Okay, so go to farmertofarmerpodcast.com, use the contact form to tell me who you'd like to hear. Thank you for listening. Be safe out there and keep the tractor running.